Jerome Lester, Jerry, Horwitz, more popular by his stage name Curly Howard, was an American comedian and vaudevillian. He is best remembered as a member of the American slapstick comedy team, the Three Stooges. Curly is often considered the most popular and recognizable of the Stooges. Curly Howard was born as Jerome Lester Horwitz on October 22, 1903, in New York City, to Jennie Gorovitz and Solomon Horwitz. He was the youngest of the 5 sons of his parents. His family was of Lithuanian Jewish descent. When Curly was only 12 years old, he accidentally shot himself in the foot with a loaded rifle. His brother Moe rushed him to the hospital and managed to save him from dying of bleeding. Later, during his time with the Stooges, he developed a famous exaggerated walk to mask the limp on screen. Curly Howard's first on-stage appearance was in 1928. It was as a comedy musical conductor for the Orville Knapp Band. His brother Moe acknowledged that his performances usually overshadowed those of the band. Meanwhile, Moe and Shemp were also making it big with Ted Healy's Stooges, a very popular act in those times. In 1932, Shemp was offered a contract at the Vitaphone Studios in Brooklyn and left the act. Moe then suggested that Curly fill the role of the third stooge in the Stooges. In the beginning, Ted Healy was skeptical of Curly as he felt that Curly was far too attractive to have a funny presence on screen. Thus Curly shaved off his thick hair to acquire a funny appearance. In 1934, Healy became interested in pursuing his own career with MGM and dissolved the act. Moe, Curly, and Larry Fine renamed the act to The Three Stooges and also signed to appear in 2 real comedy short subjects for Columbia Pictures. The Stooges eventually rose to become the most popular short subject attraction, with Curly mostly playing a significant part in the trio's work. Curly's childlike mannerisms along with his natural flair for comedy made him a hit with the audiences, especially children. His skills in comedy and humor were so exceptional that many times directors let the camera roll freely to let Curly improvise. Jules White, in particular, would leave gaps in the Stooges' scripts in order to let Curly improvise for several minutes altogether. Throughout the late 1930s and early 1940s, the Stooges enjoyed great success with hits like Punch Drunks, A Plumbing Will Go, We Want Our Mummy, and Cactus Makes Perfect. His brother Moe once stated that if Curly ever forgot his lines, he was allowed to improvise on the spot so that the take could continue. Curly's reactions and his expressions were imitated by the Stooges even long after he left the act. By 1944, Curly's energy level had started deteriorating. In his films Idle Rumors and Booby Dupes, his actions can be seen slowing down, indicating his waning health. In 1945, he was diagnosed with extreme hypertension, a retinal hemorrhage, as well as obesity. By mid-1946, Curly's voice had become coarser than before, and it became hard for him to even recall simple dialogues. During the filming of Half-Wit's Holiday, in May 1946, Curly suffered a severe stroke while he was sitting on the director's chair. He was rushed to the hospital and the scene had to be done again with only Moe and Larry. After Curly suffered the stroke, his brother Shemp made the decision to return and replace him in the Columbia shorts. Curly made his reappearance with his brothers and Larry Fine in the film, Hold That Lion, which was released in the year 1947. Later in June 1948, Curly played a cameo role in the short film, Malice in the Palace. But his illness was continuing to affect him and therefore many of his scenes weren't good enough and had to be removed in the final edit. The off-screen personality of Curly Howard was interestingly the antithesis of his on-screen image. An introvert, he used to keep to himself mostly. He was rarely seen socializing with people unless he had been drinking. His drinking increased as his career progressed as he was unable to cope with the stress. Curly married Elaine Ackerman on June 7, 1937. The next year, Elaine gave birth to a girl, Marilyn, who remained their only child. The couple divorced in June 1940, following which Curly not only gained a lot of weight but also developed hypertension. He became an incessant alcoholic and was very insecure about his appearance as well. Though he never drank while acting in films or on stage, as his brother Moe would never permit it, he spent lots of money on wine, food, women, and cars in the absence of his brother. He was near bankruptcy very often. Curly was also known for his love of dogs and found companionship in his dogs and other strays whom he used to befriend. Often he would pick up homeless dogs and take them with him until he managed to find a home for them. He later got married again, to a woman named Marion Buxbaum, on October 17, 1945. The marriage, however, lasted for less than 3 months. The divorce negatively affected his financial status and public image. On July 31, 1947, he got married for a third time to Valerie Newman. They had one daughter named Jennie who was born the following year. The couple remained together till his death. Curly Howard suffered his second massive stroke in late 1948, which paralyzed him partially. He was eventually confined to a wheelchair and put on a diet of boiled rice and apples. He had to be admitted to the Motion Picture Country House and Hospital again in August 1950. He was placed in a nursing home the next year, where he suffered yet another stroke a month later. In April that year, he was sent to the North Hollywood Hospital and Sanitarium. As his mental health was deteriorating, Curly started causing problems to the nursing staff at the sanitarium. His brother Moe later moved him to Baldy View Sanitarium in San Gabriel, California. On January 18, 1952, Curly finally passed away. He was only 48. After being given a standard Jewish funeral, he was laid to rest at the Western Jewish Institute section of Home of Peace Cemetery in East Los Angeles.